everyone. Welcome back to the Goofy Guy Podcast. Today is January 15th, 2023. I am Jim Spangler, your host, and my goal is to make your planning for your Disney vacation easier. However, today, we're going to do something I swore I would never do again, because there are people that do it better than me. I swore I would never do another news podcast. I would give you like high-level news, like big announcements, but so much happened this week that I thought it was worth a special podcast to talk about it and to get together with Mandi and Alex to talk about with, because I know, Alex is way committed. If you haven't been to his TikTok channel, you need to go see it. He was just showing me an amazing lightsaber that he has made that I'm like, oh, dude, you could sell that. And Mandi, we all know because she's been doing her trip reports and has been on the podcast, which we love. So this is a special podcast, and we'll see where it goes with this conversation. So, hey, guys.
Yeah.
Hello.
How you doing? I'm so glad you could both join me.
Yeah.
I was like, once this news started coming out, I was like, we have got to get together.
We got to talk.
We got to talk.
We got to chat.
Yeah, we definitely got to chat. And, and I think we got some good news from Disney. Mm-hmm. But I also think Disney got slapped around a little bit this week.
I mean, yeah.
And so I want to talk about
this
that.
by saying the news it shouldn't be good news. It should have just been news that should have just happened.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So let's just go with the big announcement, which we all knew was coming. And actually, we all knew when it was coming. Right. Honestly, we didn't know the exact date, but we kind of knew. Tron is finally opening on April 4th of 2023.
It only took 50,000 years.
Yeah.
It took, so the coaster enthusiasts today, this is the reason I brought it up in our little pre-chat. The coaster enthusiasts today said that somebody calculated it has been 2,089 days since they announced that roller coaster in Walt Disney World. They think it may be a record.
It's
for how long from announcement to opening.
And I know it. We've said
it.
I know we've said it before, but there's really just no excuse because it is not a new coaster. It's just a plug and play. They've done it already, so there's no reason. They're not fixing or troubleshooting things they've never dealt with.
And I'll even give them a little bit for the pandemic.
I'll give them a little
leeway.
A little bit of grace. I'll give you a year. I'll give you a year to catch up.
This is something that I actually think was the more I think about it, was planned to let it go. And this is why. Because the beginning, when you're announcing a ride, you ride that hype that people are excited. The longer it takes, the hype dies. And then you're in this lull. But then it becomes a talking point. It becomes another kind of viral talking point. And then the moment that it starts to become, are they ever going to open it? Are they ever going to open it? You wait until it tips right back to they're finally opening it.
I understand.
I feel like there's a little strategy there. I feel like there was a little strategy there.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that was the original strategy because they wanted it open.
I don't think it was.
They wanted it open before the 50th.
Yes. I don't, like I said, I don't think that was the original strategy. However, once it got to a point where they passed the initial hype, and they weren't going to hit, they were like, okay, we can either launch it at the end of last year, which I think they could have if they wanted to, because it's to a point where I don't think they wanted to. And I think they waited until they got through some certain things. And then they're like, oh, we're doing this and doing that. And Tron is open. And now people are like, oh, now I have to ride it because it's been so long.
I think, I just think it's kind of shameful that, Universal can get a whole new coaster up that is amazing.
Oh,
I mean, almost a whole park.
Almost a whole park.
Yeah.
And did they announce Hagrid at the same time? So they actually got two coasters up.
And here's the thing, like,
two amazing coasters up.
I don't understand, like, the lack of transparency as to like what the delay was.
It's a rest on your laurels.
Like
they don't care.
Like, is it that, or is it like it was truly just such a flawed process that they didn't want to communicate that because it was embarrassing?
Because they blew it. because they blew it? Or was there something technical that happened, like or with the ground or something like that?
But if that was the case, why not just be transparent?
Why not just say it? Yeah,
just be like, hey, you know what?
Agree.
It's longer than we anticipated. It's this.
And this is why. We know you're excited about this. We're excited about it
too. It's better to just say it than anything.
Right. But I truly do think that it was like, okay, well, we something happened with like funding, something happened with like scheduling, something happened, and it was somebody's fault. And they didn't want that to come out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree.
I mean, everything comes down to stocks, right? It comes down to their bottom line. And if this was a funding problem, then no world would they ever announce that.
Exactly.
Never.
Which is why that's what I think it probably was. It was somebody fucked up and they didn't want to. They didn't want to say anything.
They didn't want to say anything.
Like, you can wait, right?
Yeah. That's very true. That's very true. I just think that, and like I said, we're going to talk about this a little later, but I think that they've got some problems, and it's not just in their parks.
No,
they have some real problems in house. I think so, and we'll talk about that later. But I think this runs deeper. I think this is a symptom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not the disease, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a real issue going on, and we're going to talk about a couple things a little later that may not be on the script.
Oh,
that I'll bring up and surprise you with. So anyway, Tron's finally opening. Yay!
Woo.
Yeah, I am excited about it. I am looking forward to writing it. But I've been looking forward to writing it for 5 years. So.
Right,
the whole series of announcements is this, and there was much rejoicing. Yay.
Yeah, that's the
whole thing. That's the whole thing.
Thank you, Dudley. Thank you.
We knew.
Thank you. I love those.
It's just like wild to think. It's like I've been to Disney. I've seen Tron in construction. Every time I've been,
it's like pretty, like great construction decor.
There it is. Oh, look, the last time I saw this was like, 2 years ago, and it doesn't look any different. Like that's a problem.
It's starting to just become Chicago, where most parts of it just stay under construction for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. So speaking of Chicago, like the Jane Byrne intersection, which thank goodness they fixed that. It's finally wonderful now.
Oh my God.
But it took 9 years. But at least they told us why it took 9 years.
Right.
At least they were like the ground. We had no idea the ground was in as bad a shape as it was.
Right.
And we had to build all that up. So at least we knew what was going on with that. Okay, for those of you that don't live in Chicago, that makes no sense. I understand. If you've driven through Chicago, you've driven through it, though.
Right.
So
anybody,
doesn't matter where you've been driving through. All right, so let's move on to the next announcement. So free parking has returned to the Walt Disney World resorts.
Yes.
I put in the notes, this is huge.
I mean,
this is why. Let me say why I think it's huge, and then I'm going to let you guys just go.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's huge because when they did it, the fan community went ballistic, and we're like, "This is nickel and diming us. You're just if you want us to spend at a deluxe resort $25 more a night, just raise the price $25.
Right.
Don't say that this is a parking fee." And I know they did it because they didn't want people to get on they didn't want people to leave the grounds, right? They wanted them to leave their cars at home so that they'd have to use Disney World transportation. It would be harder to get out of the park and out of the grounds. I get all of that.
But if you want to do that, then don't get rid of the Magical Express. If that's really the reason, then don't make that decision.
That's exactly right. So I think this was in Alex's what Alex said earlier. I think this was a cleanup of a mess, and this just gave them the opportunity because they were announcing so many things at once.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where it's like, okay, great, but it didn't need to happen in the first place. Like,
no,
why in the first place are we dealing with this?
We're going to keep coming back to the fact that, but we're going to compare Universal down the line in this conversation. Disney has this thing where they were up here. They were like up at the top of the list in terms of like their popularity, what they could offer. And this was probably you go back about like 10 years ago, like You're at kind of the height. I would mark that as kind of where they were. And then over the years, they just kind of stopped pushing because they were like, we're Disney, we don't have to. And then it started to fall, and then panic set in. Chapek came in. I'm not going to return anything. I'm going to nickel and dime. And then they were even farther down, which pushed them below Universal. And now they're trying to get back to even footing. And
I'm not even sure that they're trying to get back to even footing. I think they're just trying to get above water.
Yeah. Oh, they're treading water.
They aren't even.
Sure.
I don't even think they're even treading. I think they were sinking. And let's be clear: the Disney parks will always be popular. They will always be popular. Yeah. They're not going anywhere. They're not. That's not happening. But this is. I mean, this was stupid to begin with.
Yeah, it's you're paying for a hotel. Like if you can do that at a hotel, and if you have a room at the Hilton, you get free parking.
Okay, so here is what Disney said when that happened, because that was people's argument, right? Disney said, yes, but you pay resort fees at those resorts. You pay a daily resort fee at the Hyatt or at the Marriott or
because we're not paying any fees.
You need a bullshit button.
A resort at Disney.
You need a bullshit button.
Bullshit. I agree.
Bullshit.
I agree. But that was their argument, right? That's what they said. They were like, you're used to doing this anyway. We're just calling it a parking fee.
That's a PR person's.
You're
argument.
already paying more fees by virtue of being at a deluxe resort on Disney property.
Well, and then you raise the price anyway.
Right.
Yeah, I mean it was $15 at their economy. It was $20 at moderate and $25 a night at deluxe. Yeah. If you were a DVC member, you didn't have to pay anything. Mm-hmm. So it was just a bad move. And they did it completely wrong.
Again, it's this trend of just nickeling and diming where you can, and that's really
this was even before Chapek. I mean, this was
true. But I mean, the nickel and diming didn't start with Chapek.
And I wonder. I would like to find out how much money they actually made from doing that.
Probably not enough to justify it.
Negligible, because most people don't drive.
Right. And but like I said at the beginning, that was the point, right? The point was to keep you on property.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they took it away. Yay. They took it away. You don't have to worry about it anymore. It never should have been there to begin with. So there you go.
Right.
Our next piece of news. Remember, this was all good news. This was all good news. We're banging on them, but this was all good news.
It is. I think it's just the bitterness that we all feel about the fact that none of this.
News. It shouldn't have been on a list. It shouldn't have happened.
That's right. That's exactly right. So Walt Disney World annual pass holders no longer need reservations to visit the parks in the afternoon. And as the parking, that started on January 10th. Mm-hmm. So just this past week. So first of all, I'm going to say, why aren't you selling annual passes anymore?
That's going to be, I was going to say, can people get passes?
You can't even, no, they're selling one pass. They're selling the least expensive pass to Florida residents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Did you hear, though, in Disneyland that they've released a statement saying that they're going to, and it's very vague. The language is very vague.
The keys are coming back.
The magic keys will be back at certain times. That's literally certain times throughout 2023. They will be selling magic keys.
And I understand. So Disneyland has a bigger problem than Disney World. Disneyland is a local park.
Much,
it's a regional
smaller,
park.
much more.
Much smaller. And everybody got annual passes because it was cheap.
Yeah, because you can also walk. It's like, you want to go to Disneyland for the day? Or like, we're bored.
That's exactly what people did. People would just after school would go. Right. And they had, so they had, not only did they have issues with no revenue coming in from, because let's be honest, annual pass holders don't spend as much money.
No.
They spend more often, but they don't spend as much. Well, and so they had revenue issues besides crowd issues. You know, there were lots of issues. So when Disneyland axed that, I kind of understood, but I thought they were axing it to revamp it, which they kind of tried to do, but it didn't work.
Right.
Nobody bought into it. with points. You're going to get points for doing certain things, and you're going to get benefits from those points. And
what is this, Kohl's?
So it's
that's exactly what it was.
So it's it's a Target credit card.
Yeah, it was a Starbucks card. It was you're going to get stars, right?
Right.
Great.
Gold stars. Yeah. So, but there's no reason that Disney World has this issue. No reason at all. Especially when they started the reservation system. Then it really became a non-issue.
Because
they were only letting so many people in the parks anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I've talked about this before, and Mandi knows, I let my annual pass go during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure when I was going to go, and I wasn't going to pay that amount of money, for not be able to go. And now I want my annual pass back.
And you can't get it.
And I can't get it. And I'm a DVC member. You would think that they would at least open it back up to their DVC
members. Yeah.
I mean, we're the people that go
you would think
all the time.
Right.
So this is supposed to be a good thing. Is this a good thing?
I mean, so I've seen a lot of people I've seen a lot of the TikTokers posting about it. And they're like, oh, this is great. This is cool. But then they're kind of like the same sort of sentiment, right? It's like, cool, we could have just done this before. Awesome. Great. It's very much like people are very excited about the announcements, but then the moment there's a reality that hits, you get that initial, oh, cool, wait. It's like that.
That's exactly right. So, and I, go ahead, Mandi. I have a feeling you have things to say.
I do. I just, again, it's that like same, it's just the same thing. It's like, I feel like is it right for us to even be feeling this excitement when it's like a little kid that's like grounded and like he's finally able to like do something. It's like, but we didn't get punished for anything.
I think this,
it's like getting privileges back that we didn't deserve to have taken away in the first place.
Yeah. But also, what does this say about their afternoon crowds?
Sure. Yeah.
Does it say that people are not staying the whole day anymore?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, also considering the fireworks show's garbage, but that's fine.
Well, they're changing it. They're putting it back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's another announcement. That's another announcement. We'll get there.
I feel like the first three things we just talked about were things that should have happened, but this next one that's on the list here is one that I'm like, okay, this is a good change, right? And we can lead into that, but
we can lead into that. Okay, so the next piece of news is, and this all came in the same announcement. This was all packaged together. Genie Plus is going to include free downloads for on-ride photos. Now,
you know what? It makes me furious because there are some hilarious on-ride photos that Steve and I took on our trip, and we paid upwards of $100 a day for Genie Plus in Lightning Lane. And we couldn't even access those photos that we paid for Genie Plus. So like that to me is like, that should have been a given.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason. And then when I went to go try to buy the photos that we took with PhotoPass, it's gonna cost us like $70 something.
Yeah, so that should be retroactive. That should be retroactive. It probably wouldn't be that hard of a change.
No.
To be honest. No. It wouldn't be that hard to implement, go into the system, see it between certain dates, who bought Genie Plus, and state their photos.
Let's be honest. I'm a computer programmer. It literally is like 2 lines of code.
Yeah.
This is not rocket science.
No.
And I'm going to say,
it's the money.
It's the money. And here's the other thing that pisses me off about this. Back a few years ago, they took away that from annual pass holders. Because annual pass holders used to get all those
their PhotoPass
photo passes for free downloads. It doesn't cost them anything.
Nothing.
They're already paying those people to be there to take pictures. Yeah. And they're all digital. They're not printing anything out.
I remember when that happened, and I remember because I was watching, because how many years ago was that?
Like 2-3 years ago.
2-3 years ago. I remember because I used to watch the Diz like all the time.
Yeah.
That was back when I was like watching it, and Pete Werner had an absolute field day with that. It was like one of his
completely one of the most it's one of the most petty things they've ever done.
It's just mean.
Honestly,
it's
just mean.
It's mean-spirited.
You take your most avid fans,
yes,
the people that love you the most, and you take that away. You're taking things away instead of giving them things.
Yeah.
You're taking things away.
It's like, why? To what end?
Why? How much money did they save by that? Well, honestly, how much money did they save by that? Not much.
No.
If anything, because they're still paying those people to be there. They still have all that memory. Those pictures are still being taken and need to be stored someplace. So it saved them no money. Nothing. Yeah.
So again, along that same theme, yay, question mark?
Correct. Yeah.
But here's the thing. It was the first kind of, I look at this list like, okay, this is the first one that's not a pull back and refresh in an immediate sense. Obviously, we just talked about how annual passwords had that, but this is more of a, okay, but you also should have just implemented that in the first place.
Right. So they're adding value, right? Which I appreciate. I do appreciate
the first added value.
This is the first added value, especially of everything that we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
This is the first add value to what they've got. So with this one, I think it's important at this point to read Josh Damaro's thing that he put out, right? His statement that he put out. Yes. So this is quoted from him. This is not necessarily about change in leadership. I have a lot of face-to-face conversation with guests and I'm walking the parks. Oh, when I'm walking the park, sorry. And I read a lot of their comments online. If you move a tree, if you change a procedure, if you start asking for reservations, that's a big deal to our guests. They care. They really, really care. And if people care that much, then I have an obligation to listen and, when appropriate, to make some changes and modifications.
Shouldn't have taken the job if that's news to you.
I literally almost spit out my coffee when I read it.
It's not. Yeah, congratulations. You just figured that out.
The sky is blue.
Yeah, the sky is blue. I also saw a great article that said, how we all complain about Genie Plus, but we might be blaming the wrong person. So it's not just one person about Genie Plus. I'm not saying that so that we can start talking about it. I'm saying that as in things are not always how they appear. And this statement, to me, this statement is bullshit. Because if that's the case, they would have made changes a long time ago.
Yeah. Right. Well, and it's like you're stating it as though it's like, people care about the decisions that are being made. And, if people care, then I guess I have to care. Like, no, it's literally your job. That's literally your job.
So Jim and I were having a conversation about right before this, we started recording this, about, and Mandi, I don't know if you've seen this, the Dungeons and Dragons, which is the Coast OGL, which is called the Open Gaming License. And what happened, to summarize, is they were going to release a license that essentially told anyone that was previously using a open source set of mechanics that played D&D, anyone who uses that for any hundreds of thousands of products will now have to start paying licensing fees, and essentially, or they would shut them down. And that included YouTubers and online creators, and it was this huge explosion thing. And then they pretty much came back with this statement, like, we were always going to ask you about that. Like, we were never going to do this, blah, blah. And it's bullcrap. And there's this whole thing that I look at this and I keep thinking in the back of my mind that there's a similarity between these two very large companies. When you look at how Walt started Disney, this was about the guests. It was about the experience. It's about the community. When you look at, for example, Dungeons and Dragons, in the gaming space specifically, because that's, for a little bit of background, I work in the gaming space. I work in the board gaming and TTRPGs and all sorts of things. That is community inclusion focused, 100%. That is most of your business.
Yeah.
As these companies have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, they start to think they are too big to fail. And as you start to replace and add people, that thought starts to fade. It's like as time goes on, people start to forget things and start to forget things that should have been handed down from generation to generation. And it's almost like they were phasing out. You're phasing out people that realize that community matters. And you you've hit this point with Dungeons and Dragons, and now we've hit this point with Disney, where they are forgetting the people that brought you there because they didn't think that in the first place, and the people that brought them on didn't think that either. They were phasing that out. And you're hitting a point where you can't just rest on your laurels and say, we're Disney, we're too big to fail. You have to go back to where you started and saying, no, community matters, and you have to listen. And this is to make this business. This is what the brand is. This is what the company is. And this statement shows that has not been consistent and hasn't been handed down. It hasn't been continued. And the people that hired them have not thought that.
That's right.
And it's a big problem with big companies that grow up focusing on community.
Right.
Is that they forget it.
This shouldn't be a groundbreaking discovery that you should be making. This should just be like, this should be the culture.
Yep.
That's right.
And the culture got phased. The culture got phased out. And that's, I think we talked about, it's a bigger problem at Disney. And I think that is the bigger problem. It became it became bottom line focused that they forgot who got them there in the first place. Well, and what got them there in the first place.
And they forgot that they have the bottom line that they have because of what they were doing in the past.
Well,
exactly.
That's the reason they have that bottom line. Yeah. So I just laughed. I literally spit out my coffee. I just thought that was just the funniest statement ever. You know, he and Iger spent that day in Disneyland and talked to all those people and did all that stuff. And then all of a sudden they've made these announcements.
It just reads as so out of touch. That's all.
It is. It's out of touch.
It's just very out of touch.
It is. And I feel like we are being negative Nellies today. And I'm so sorry because we usually are not negative Nellies.
No, this is just true. This is a true talk.
We're just trying to be honest.
Well,
and my philosophy is a fun but honest look.
Well, right. And I think that like we as some of the people that I mean, admittedly, I'm one of the biggest, if not the biggest Disney fan I know, right? Like, it's like, I will like live and die by that. Like, I love Disney. I am dedicated to it. And so that knowledge and like, it's like, I have to look at it through the lens of like a consumer as well as somebody that loves it. Like, you can't separate those two and pretend that like that those things don't exist. Like, just because I love it doesn't mean that I can't look at it critically. It actually makes us a little bit more qualified to look at it critically because we're the ones that have the most investment in it.
And so I think that it's also, I think saying that, I think it's our love for Disney that causes us to want to keep them to a higher standard.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we know how it could be. And we know the standard that they should be striving for. Whereas you got those people that are going that have never been to Disney before that are willing to spend, $20,000 on a trip for a family of 4, family of 5, whatever. And then, they go once and then they step away and they never think about it again. Like,
that's right.
Those are the people that Disney is catering to now or has been catering to for the past, 5, I would say maybe more years. And like, they need to bring themselves back to their roots and recognize the people that actually
are. And they also need to understand that it benefits everyone. If you listen to your fan community, you don't have to do everything they say because some people are saying some crazy things.
Well, right.
But there are some basic just business things that they could do that would be appreciated in the fan community and elevate them. Because I'll be honest with you right now, I am not happy with Disney. I canceled my last Disney trip because I just didn't want to go and be nickel and dime to death.
And
I didn't want to go and
that's significant.
Yeah.
Right? Because I went
twice. I went at least twice a year.
It's also like there's a lot of the little things have poked enough holes in the rose-colored glasses that they've shattered, right? I mean, it's the experiences of the cast members like talking to you on the streets and all those experiences are gone. There's trash. There's black mold on boats. There's just it's all these small things that Disney, when you focus on the little things, it puts enough of a gap in between the bigger problems because it at least that way. But the problem is they're even down to the little things of just keeping the place clean that have just fallen to the wayside.
Well, and that's go ahead, Mandi.
I was just saying that bringing it back to like we're being negative, like no, because this podcast is focused on those little things because those little things are the only things that have been fixed.
That's right.
And they're making it seem as though it's a much bigger and more significant announcement than it is, when in reality they're just
it should have been done in the first place.
Putting duct tape over the issues that
it should have just been a newspaper. It should have just been a newspaper announcement in the back page. Honestly.
Yeah.
Honestly. So, speaking of, Alex brought up the mold on the boats and such. if you go out to my TikTok channel, or if you look on the YouTube channel, I just did a 3-minute, literally just kind of going off for 3 minutes about, where Disney is at and what's happening. And what I said was, if you aren't going to continue to build out the parks, if you're not going to continue to give us new things, which is fine. I like the old stuff. I'm good with the old stuff. I will still go because it's all nostalgia to me. It's all fun, right? Then it better be pristine. Those rides better run perfectly. Those, you better be investing in a clean park. That's exactly right. And they're not. They don't care. It took Walt Disney World News Today, WDW News Today, to point out the mold on those boats.
And they got cleaned.
And then they got literally the next day.
Yeah.
They came out the next day and were clean. So if you think that they're not listening to us.
Oh, no.
They are. The problem is nobody's going, hey, there's mold there before somebody films that. That should probably get cleaned, huh?
Well, that's right.
That's the first sign of a dot this big of mold. The problem is it was the whole bottom of the boats.
Right. And it's not our job. That's not our job.
That's
not our job.
It's like they're seeing how long they can go
Yeah.
before they can, like, how long they can hold off making those fixes and making those changes and saving that money before they're like, okay, I guess we got to fix it.
How much did it really cost them?
Exactly.
How much did it really cost them? It
that's not the
cost
point.
them anything.
It doesn't cost them anything. And it's like walking down, I say this every time, like, and this is not a little thing. Like, this is a significant thing. Walking into Tomorrowland looks like you're walking into a mall in 1987.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's faded. It's sad. It's dated and it's ugly. And they're just leaving it there because nobody, like, what are you going to do? Not come? Like,
as a matter of fact,
yes.
Yes. Here's something that I've always kind of wondered. And my thought on those kind of updates, like just updating some paint.
Put some paint on the freaking wall.
But you have like the street sweepers who like draw and they do those kinds of things while they're doing their job. Instead of sometimes putting up those awful facades, why don't you at least have that person who's painting act as if they're a character who is helping? They're a Main Street painter and they are helping update the paint at the same time. I feel like that's part of it, right?
What?
Like,
Alex, that makes way too much sense. That makes way too much sense and would be way too much
we have maintenance workers who already do stuff.
Honestly, that doesn't even bother me. That's I wouldn't even care if they integrate it into the theming. Just fix it. You can flip.
Just fix it.
You can flip you can flip the decorations from Halloween to Christmas overnight. You can't get out there with a paintbrush and some and spackle over some of that. Crap.
And they've been retheming Tomorrowland, right? They've been trying to retheme it, but I think
next.
And maybe it's just a bigger and you know what? And I'm talking like I know what the hell I'm talking about. And I'm sure it's a much bigger issue than just like putting some paint on the facade. But in the meantime, it's like somebody walks through that gate into Tomorrowland for the first time, and you look at, look,
it's 90s land.
Oh, look. But it's not even that it's 90s land. It would be different if it was 90s land and it looked like it was well kept. It's dirty.
Well, have you ridden Buzz Lightyear recently?
Yes.
It's filthy.
It's gross.
Filthy.
It's filthy.
Oh,
and
I thought sticky.
I can't even hardly bring myself to touch that gun.
Seats.
Oh yeah. It's disgusting.
The seats in Muppet Vision 3D
are bad.
Are absolutely disgusting.
And they just redid that.
I know.
Yeah.
And they're nasty. It's
bad.
They're ripped up, they're falling apart, they're dirty, they're sticky, they're like faded, they're shredding. They're actually the seat that I sat in was actively
it goes to the whole thing of maintenance in general, right? I mean, how many times have I seen Mickey's PhilharMagic and the 4D effects don't work.
Don't work.
No.
I love that. Is one of my favorite attractions.
One of my favorites.
I think it's brilliant. The new Coco installation
was great.
Magnificent.
I forgot about it actually
when was the last time the smell thing? When was the last time the smell worked in there?
And the sad thing is if you've never been in it, you don't know.
No.
Right. So you have no idea that you should get wet or that you should smell something or you don't know those things. And every time that pie goes across and Be Our Guest, I'm always
I'm always waiting for the apple cinnamon.
Yep. Or I'm waiting for jasmine. Right. I'm waiting for the jasmine smell. Right.
I haven't smelled that in years. Well, and again, it would be different if this was a Six Flags. But
it's becoming.
We're paying so much more money for an experience that I shouldn't walk into Muppet Vision 3D and think, I don't want to sit on that seat.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right.
You shouldn't have to think that. And you know what? Yeah. And I know it's a much bigger operation than like any other theme park in the world, right? It's there's so much more that goes into it. But the point is, we know that standard is possible because 10, 15, 20 years ago, Alex, when you and I were little, that
it was pristine and beautiful.
Yeah,
none of that ever would have happened.
It's true. Yeah, it's very true. All right, so let's move on. No, it's okay. I knew that's what this was going to be about because I knew that we all had such strong feelings about what is going on, and I don't want to sugarcoat it. I don't want people that are planning their trips to go in and not know these things, right? They need to know that they need to bring their wipes to wipe things down. Mm-hmm. I would never go into I would not go into I don't go into a Disney park anymore without my pack of wipes, right?
Yeah.
Butt wipes or whatever they are, baby wipes, or I don't care what they are. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to some really good news.
When I tell you, I almost burst into tears.
I squealed. I literally squealed out loud. The Harmonious Barges. First of all, we know Harmonious is leaving. Its last show is on April 2nd.
Alex
and Epcot Forever Returns is coming back. I agree, Alex. I don't like that show either.
But it's not there to stay.
It's not there to stay. It's a temporary thing because they need time to get those barges out. The barges are leaving. Now,
Thank God.
Take a breath, Alex. They're so big and they are so when I went ugly.
So that's the thing.
And I told you that. I was like, Alex, you don't know until you see them. And then you see them and you're like, oh.
It's
I don't disagree. I don't disagree that the barges are ugly. That comes down to a design problem that should have been solved, and it wasn't. However, I love Harmonious. I love the show. Last time I went, I was literally front row. Like front row, nobody was in front of me. And it was absolutely incredible. I got emotional. I saw it. The barges are gross. And
the barges are gross.
It's the exact same reason why the boats are dirty.
And
it's the
also,
same reason.
Alex, the thing I will say about Harmonious is if you are not sitting in the right place, it's not a good show.
You can't see it, yeah.
You can't see it. So much of that show happens on the big sphere, circle, time machine, whatever.
Stargate.
Yeah.
Stargate, right. That if you are not directly in front of that, it doesn't work.
Oh, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to see.
And because then it becomes a one-trick pony.
Well,
right?
which
then
it
becomes, they put the water up and they're lighting up the water and they're all wavy. Great. They did it again.
And the crowds are so bad. I mean, when we went, it was because people just fight for those spots that you can see from the center, right? Like it's packed. You can't even see it anyway because you'd have to get there as if 2 hours before.
It's almost as if instead of one giant one in the middle, you make smaller ones that are collapsible that are at different points so everyone can see it.
Yeah, well, I'm just
nobody said that in a room. Like it's that kind of stuff where it's like you look at Disney again overall and said nobody once went, hey, we should do this.
Well, and they spent a fortune on that. Yeah. We're not getting a lot of the Epcot updates because that was so far over budget.
Yeah,
and
I love the show, but
I think the show is fine. It's not my favorite show, but the show is fine. And you need to know that Illuminations is the pinnacle of that for me.
Yeah.
For me personally, right? That was that every time I saw that at the end when all the lights are going off and it's da 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 da, I was like, to me that is perfect.
I love Illuminations.
Synchronization with music and visuals and all of that. Just like I think that the this fireworks show that's coming back is the same idea. I think that it's such a perfect synchronization of what we expect, but those barges are so ugly.
Yeah, they're ugly.
And why didn't you make them so that they could come in and come out?
They're just so big.
They're so big.
I think they made them. I feel like it comes down to show design and saying where it's like bigger is not always better.
Well, and they tried to sell us on the fact that they were going to have fountains to cover them up. Have you seen those fountains run? It's a joke.
It's like the stuff you put in someone's pool. That's just like
exactly what
you throw it out into it, and it's just like.
That's exactly what it's like.
It's the stuff you get at like Alsip Nursery in Mokeen, like in our suburb, or like you go to like whatever the American Sale, and you get this thing that plugs into your wall, just like.
That's exactly. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Certainly not what the images looked like, right?
No.
And yeah, no, it's not anything like that. And I will end with this, unless does anybody else have any strong opinions they need to share about this?
No. I've talked Harmonious to death.
I have too. I will just say that if you were a bride having your wedding in Epcot and you planned that and spent all that money, and then all of a sudden you showed up at Epcot and these big ugly black barges are in your pictures in the background.
The Gotham City, a post-apocalyptic.
I would be absolutely. I would change
Barges.
my whole wedding. I would change my whole wedding to like a Pirates of the Caribbean theme, and just like, oh, that's the Kraken.
Yeah. It's
just Photoshop it. Honestly, if somebody,
that's what I would do.
If somebody said, could you Photoshop the barges out? I would do one of those viral videos where I changed them to things, and it would be the Kraken. It would just be Godzilla behind them.
And I love the idea of why didn't they make it like something like that? Why didn't they make something cool out of it? Like,
make
like the Loch Ness monster. Yeah, I mean, anything.
Theme it in any way.
Theme it. Put a facade on it.
I hope that whoever sold that idea is no longer there.
Paint it go away green for all I care.
Go away green, I'm telling you. Go away green works. It works.
Mm-hmm. It does.
All right. So back to our regularly scheduled program. Happily Ever After is returning on April 3rd. So I think this is brilliant. And everybody loved Wishes, and I get it. I loved Wishes too. But when I saw and I have a soft place for Wishes too. It was there for 20 years. Mm-hmm. But when I saw Happily Ever After and I heard everybody complaining about it, it's not Wishes, it's not blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, it's not. It's better.
Good. Yeah.
It's better. I was like, how? It's amazing. And so I'm really excited that it's coming back.
Yeah. It is going to have new Main Street projections.
Which I think is a waste. I think that's a waste, though.
Well, here's the thing. It's the same sort of thing like you were saying at Epcot, right? If you're not standing in a spot, like you obviously have the castle there, but replicating some of that for the people who are standing way in the back at
I'll give you that. Yes.
And especially now that they are allowing annual pass holders to come without reservation past 2, they are expecting more people to be there. So you want to expand that experience back.
I agree with that. I can buy that. I'll buy into that. And you have the technology there. You might as well.
You have it there. You might as well use it. The one concern is, and I think, and this is one of those things where I think Josh Damaro screwed up, or they screwed up at D23, because at the announcement, they announced Happily Ever After was coming back, but they said the music is coming back. But you could barely hear him because he was getting drowned out. And what happened was, I think this is what happened, because I don't think they're going to be changing a lot of the show, but that's me making a rumor or just like a thought, because they went, oh, guys, they all think that it's just coming back. Let's just add some stuff. But remember that whole thing I said we should change a little bit of it? Don't do it. Don't do it. Look at the boards. They didn't hear my theme that it was coming. That they're just going to act like I never said it.
They don't need to change it. It's brilliant. No. They don't need to change it. No. So
there's a reason Wishes was around for 20 years.
That's exactly right. So that's good news.
Very excited.
Let's go into okay, so is the dining plan returning? I asked this because this was actually an announcement a couple of weeks ago that now you can get up to $750 of dining credit for your trip, which is kind of dining plan. Now, I hate the dining plan because I am a vegetarian. Food. Well, I'm a vegetarian. Do you know how much I have to eat to get my value?
Yeah.
My God.
So I like this idea better, though, because my solution was always whatever I would spend on the dining plan, I just put on a prepaid card, and use that to pay for my meals, and then whatever I had left over, instead of having to like go and try to figure out how to spend my snack credits.
Yeah. I've always thought that Disney should employ something we had in college, which was called late night. It was like late night credits. And what you could do is you had a tier, right? There were tiers of how much meals you need. And there was like and what they should do is they should have feeds a family of 1 to 2 for these days. Tier 2 feeds this then for these many days. Tier 3, and you should be able to choose how many you want or need. Right. And like that's a really simple way to do a meal plan. That is, you don't need to reinvent the wheel with something like that, right?
And they shouldn't have, and they also shouldn't have made it so that everybody on the reservation has to be on the meal plan, or nobody's on the plan,
right?
Because like the meal plan was great for my dad. It was great for my dad. He would go in and order a steak every place. He would go in and do those things, right? But for me, who goes in and I'm like, oh, I can have. I can have the pasta. I can have a salad. And don't get me wrong, Disney does vegetarian, vegan well. They really do. They have a lot of options, and it just continually gets better. I'm not complaining about that. I'm just saying that the dining plan never worked for me, and I always told people to work out the finances on it, and find out if it was worth it, right? The Disney Dining blog does a brilliant job of working that out for you. And so, but I think they're trying to bring it back, and they're trying to find a new way to do it. And I think it's the right choice.
Do they have an experience or something on their app or anything that you can click that you are of it? Like when your dining preferences, you should be able to put your dining preferences, click a button, and then it makes recommendations based on your food preferences.
Yeah, no, they don't do that. So the Disney Food blog will help you with that, all that stuff. And when you make a reservation, they ask if you have any special preferences or allergies or anything. And they're great about that too, right? About making adjustments and changing things for you. Like if anybody out there is worried about that, Disney is literally the best at it.
Yeah.
The chef will literally come out and talk to you. But I agree, Alex. It's a simple change.
They have so much information on you anyway. I mean, your dining preferences, like it's just you go into your account and you add things that you like to eat. And then it would only better their experience, but also people will be able to better navigate to food.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think, if you're going to get into the Genie Plus, you're going to get into the Genie, you're going to get into the planning of people's vacations, then
which they
totally are. And touringplans.com still does it better.
Yeah.
Then you should keep going in that direction and take it to, my thing has always been, and my complaint, like I'm a huge drum corps fan. I'm a huge marching band fan, color guard fan, because I grew up watching that stuff. Right. I was in high school marching band. I just love it. But my complaint is always, my complaint is always that if you don't go all in, it's not good. You either go for it or you don't do it. You either do it all out or
not at all,
or do something else, because if you do it halfway, it always looks bad. And so this is kind of
one thing. Don't half-ass one thing.
That's exactly right.
Multiple things.
So this is to me, this is kind of the same idea, right? That if you're going to do it, let's do it. And if you're going to build up over time, I get it. I'm all for that, because this is not easy. This is not easy programming. It is not easy to do. It is very complex, and you're doing it for a lot of people, and so that's hard. But it could be done. Because they're wanting to personalize your vacation.
How many surveys? I haven't seen a survey or anything about that, but I also don't know if I block that kind of stuff. But
so I hear about the surveys all the time because I listen to the Jim Hill podcast with Len Testa, and he's always asking people to send in surveys of what they're asking, and so I hear a lot about that. But there's not been much talk about that particular thing.
That's so tailored to someone specifically that when you're working on a personalized experience, you have to say, what do you want?
That's right.
Right.
And they're not really doing that yet. They're not to that point.
They'll get
there. I think they will too. If they were smart, oh, Len, I love you, Len. I love Len Testa. If they were smart, they would buy touringplans.com and pay Len Testa $1 billion and get his people.
The system and people, yeah.
Yeah, because they're brilliant.
Or partner.
They're brilliant. Or partner with them because they're brilliant. They're brilliant.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure Len would not turn that down. There would be enough money and he's been doing it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It started out as a graduate program. It started out as his dissertation for his graduate degree. So he's a genius. So anyway, so that is something to look forward to. Now we go into some of the more interesting news that happened. The Reedy Creek Improvement District, which if you don't know, that's Disney's district where they get approval for all of their building and their, all the codes and stuff. They could even build at this moment. I say at this moment because it's probably going to change. They could even build a nuclear facility on the property if they wanted to. But it's so Disney has total control, right? And that was baked into when they moved Disney to Orlando. It was baked into it. It is codified in law.
I mean, that
Florida.
was like Walt Disney was like, I'm dying on this hill. Like this.
That's exactly right.
Here.
Like
that's exactly right. And then this whole "don't say gay" thing happened, and Disney stood up against it eventually, which is a whole other podcast. And now Ron DeSantis is out to get them, right? He's out to tear this down. So it's been interesting to watch. But the reason I bring this up is that they just approved land use. So you need to know the land use at Walt Disney World is very specific. If you're going to take land away, you have to put land back for nature. You can't just use land. There has to be a swap of some sort, right? Because a certain percentage always has to be used for the environment. So, but they just made an update to it for one major and two minor parks to be developed.
Dark park.
So, dark park, right. So the reason this is important is because Ron DeSantis is now saying that there's going to be a state board that's going to run Reedy Creek Improvement District. And the reason they can't just dissolve it is because then all of that debt goes to those surrounding counties. And we're talking billions in debt. And there's no way they could do that because it would raise everybody's taxes so high that nobody could live there.
And they don't want their taxes getting raised down in Florida. That's
exactly right, because they don't pay state taxes to begin with.
Right.
So, but this is important because I think, one, it says that there might be plans coming up. And when I say two minor parks, I'm talking like water parks.
Yeah.
Right. Two minor parks. One, that there might be something coming up. It's way down the road. It is way down the road. I am not saying they're planning that fifth gate right now.
No.
That is not coming out of my mouth as a true statement.
They were checking that they could get the land for it.
That's right. And they were doing it before the state takes over.
Yeah.
They were doing it to get some. So I think we're going to see a lot of these things pass through really fast.
Yeah.
So that if for some reason, and don't get me wrong, I don't think the state will ever take over because I think Disney has so much money and can have so many lawyers on it. It'll be caught up in court forever. Yeah. And legally, they really can't do it. It's codified in law. So it would be a huge thing to get this changed. And there are not enough representatives in Florida, I think, that would go against Disney because Disney gives out a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yes.
They sponsor they give a lot of money to those campaigns for a reason. So I just thought it was interesting to bring it up because it shows that, somebody's thinking ahead.
Wheels are turning.
Wheels be turning. Somebody's thinking ahead.
Yeah. It's got to be that Villains Park.
I'm telling you, that would be the
Park.
They have totally. I don't know why they haven't done that yet. It is such the perfect.
Well, it's a blue sky idea.
But you know what?
It was only a section of the park, though. It was only a land.
Was a section. It wasn't a gate. So we could literally talk. We could do a whole podcast projecting what new park we think it could be. I mean, there are unlimited possibilities.
I might be in the minority here, but I don't like or will ever go to the water parks.
No, I don't like water parks. Which
I will tell you, I love the water parks. I think the water parks are so much fun, and it's such a nice change from the typical park day that you would spend. I just really enjoy them.
I think they're just not for a water parks. I think it's like you're either a water park person or not.
Yeah. I agree.
People that are, it's not for them, but there are plenty of people that are.
Yeah, I agree.
My concern water parks in and of themselves are petri dishes. So if the other parks are that dirty, how dirty do you think the water parks are?
Oh, totally. And you have to know that going into it, right? You have to take all your vitamins before you go, and
that's one of the reasons I don't. I also don't. I don't like walking around with a wedgie.
But the pool is also a petri dish. It's no different.
I don't go in the pool either.
Yeah, I know.
I don't go in the pool either.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I used to be a swimmer, so I'm well aware. Yeah. All right, so I just think that's important news to bring up for everybody.
Things are planned.
Things are planned. Now, we talked about there are some inner workings, and they have to clean up their house. Here's one example of that. Mark Parker has been named the new chairman of the Walt Disney Company, new chairman of the board, and he's replacing Susan Arnold. And they're saying that his main job is to look for a new replacement for Bob Iger. Mm-hmm. But this runs much deeper than that. There is a lot going on behind the scenes at Disney, a lot of just nasty, mean things happening. I mean, when your chief financial officer is changing financial reports depending on who they're showing it to get your CEO fired.
It's so toxic.
That is serious. Yeah, and it's not just that. I mean, there's a lot going on right now. A lot of backstabbing now. It's really rough. And that's why I say they need to clean up their house. They need to just clean their house and you know, because nothing is going to happen as long as that's going on.
They just need to stop hiring boomers. I said that. Sorry, I didn't. Maybe
I'm not a boomer.
This way.
I'm not a boomer, so
stop hiring boomers. Just fire them all.
Captain America just found out Hydra's invaded Disney. Like, it's Hydra. Hydra's infiltrated Disney.
It is. That's it.
Like, so, I mean, and I know it sounds bad, but it's like I could talk about this for an hour, but how toxic corporate America has become, and it's because of that generation of thinking, right? It's like that's the way that particularly white men of a certain age view, and that's unfortunately that's the main dynamic.
It's true. No, it's true.
The main dynamic that we see in power, especially at huge conglomerates, like huge businesses, like Disney is a perfect example. I mean, it's a monolith, and you've got a monolith being run by a monolith in and of itself, which is, you know, white, straight, male America.
Yeah, it's true.
So
it's true.
There needs to be some foundational change, and that starts with not hiring boomers.
Yeah, I think it does too. But I think that everything goes through that, right?
Of course,
because 20 years from now, we're going to be complaining that they're hiring millennials. So I'm not sure that is the only.
Is that the only thing? No. By no means is that the only thing. I just think that mentality, that like toxic work mind, like that bottom line minded, like, that environment, that's what is thriving Disney right now. And I think that the best way to kind of like start changing it is to start bringing in fresh eyes and people that view this, and I know you need people that are financially minded. It's a business. I fully understand that.
Yeah. And I never begrudge them making money.
Never going to begrudge them making money and making smart business decisions. But that toxicity thing, that comes with that's a corporate culture that needs to change.
Go ahead, Alex.
No, it's something also with the industries in and of themselves. I worked a couple jobs in the toy industry too, and the toy industry is actually it's really toxic and really competitive. And Disney is kind of an adjacency to that industry, and they're really competitive, like in the way that you would look at, for example, versus Universal. And there's like espionage. There's like
I agree, and that's exactly what I was going to say too. Let's not pretend that this has not been going on before we knew about it, right? No. Let's not pretend that this is something new at Disney.
I'm sure it was going on even more so when Walt started the company. I mean,
that's right, and it's just that for some reason at this point in time, it is very public.
Yeah,
and I think in the past they've done a good job of keeping it swept under the rug.
Tipping point.
Yeah, but I think with the whole Chapek thing and the whole really, being off the rails. It's just more so. And I think so. I totally agree with you, Mandi. I am with you 100%. I hate that culture too, but it is. I think it's been there for a long time, and I think that. I think that it's just sad that we're now hearing about it.
It's just time for a change.
Yeah,
time for a change.
I think fundamentally, though, like, I mean, again, could talk about it for hours, but I think like work culture and business culture and corporate culture in general is undergoing like a huge shift in the way that we view it and think about it.
Some people are fighting it.
Yeah. I think we're starting to see like, I mean, you know, it's the quiet quitting, right? Act your wage, like that whole idea of like work and making money in business and how you're coming across that money and how you're exploiting your workers and exploiting your, you know.
Yeah, and we could do a whole podcast on how much they pay Disney pays their employees.
Exactly.
I actually, as much as I don't want to see them go on strike, I'm like, go. Go. You need to be paid a living wage.
There's a fundamental issue going on there, and that only way that any change is going to be made is if people stop being complacent.
That's right. Yep. All right. So so we all agree with all of that, and that's all. And you know, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it. I just think it's important to recognize that very publicly things are happening right now in the Disney Corporation that are not good, and they need to clean house. The last thing I want to end on is I don't think that we can ignore not only Universal's announcement of their new park in Texas, but the timing of Universal's announcement.
Yeah.
We said at the beginning of this podcast that Universal is knocking it out of the park right now. They're killing it right now. And this park was so secret. Like insiders didn't even know this park was happening. And for that to happen is unheard of.
Significant.
And I personally think that Universal was just waiting for the right moment.
Oh yeah,
they've
been keeping it in their back pocket. They're just waiting to pull it out and be like.
They see Disney's on their heels, and they are pushing forward.
And they are pushing forward. I mean, look. I mean, the whole new Epic Adventure that they're building. Epic Universe, huge park.
That's gonna be insane.
It's gonna be crazy, right?
Yeah.
And they're thinking ahead with that, right? Because each section of that park, the monster section, the Harry Potter section, all of the sections, the Nintendo section, are all going to be able to be closed off individually, so that people can rent them out, right? Corporations can rent them. It's very forward thinking, very progressive, I think, in what the theme park industry is. And they're killing it.
The turnaround time for that.
That's right.
I mean, it's going to take them less time to produce that entire park than it has taken for them to build Tron.
Exactly. Exactly. That's true.
The one thing that I have noticed on social media, specifically regarding the new Mario Nintendo World, that a lot of people are saying, and I've been reading a lot of comments that say exactly, the more I look at this park, the less excited I am about it for some reason. There's this weird sentiment that's been going around that when people go, they're underwhelmed. And I think that's the current thing that Universal has to fight against right now, is being compared negatively to Disney. And right now they are pushing past that line with these announcements, and they have this, and I feel like Universal's almost like Nickelback. I would compare them to Nickelback, where a lot of Disney people just have fun talking shit about them. And they're going to get to a point where you cannot say it, because it's like, look, we're doing things and Disney's sitting there pulling all this crap.
We're not only doing things, we're doing awesome things.
Yeah.
And we're doing them quickly. We're getting them done.
Right.
Yeah.
We're getting them done.
So as long as they can put their money where their mouth is and they produce an actual, like, they're able to hold up their end of the bargain, produce a park that is as impressive as they're advertising it to be.
Right.
I think that Disney's going to be really, really struggling.
I think there are two things that we need to be aware of with this park, though, with this new park in Texas, Frisco, Texas. If you don't know where that is, it's just outside the Fort Worth, Dallas. It's just north of Fort Worth, Dallas. So
it's warm.
It's going to be warm. It's going to be hot. Dallas summers are brutal. Yeah, they are rough. They're as rough as Florida summers. That I think it's important that we remember that it is specifically a park for families with younger children.
It's very young. Like
It is not Islands of Adventure. It is not, it is not that kind of a park. And so that's important. I also think it's important to remember that it is really a regional park. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that they're going to build up around it unless it does amazingly well, then they will, because they're not stupid.
I mean, look at Magic Kingdom, that's catered to children.
That's exactly right. So they're really emphasizing that this is a family park for families with small children. Because let's be honest, Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure is really not for little kids.
No, it's not at all.
They're not, and that's okay.
Teenagers and up,
and that's all right. That's perfectly fine. So that's important to also keep in mind when we look at this. I think expectations have to be set correctly about what to expect. They're not going to build another Velociraptor, another Velocicoaster.
It's going to be a cute place to take, and it's not going to be as much of an investment because their customer base has shrunk exponentially.
That's right. And it's going to be characters from like DreamWorks, and it's going to be they have some great kids stuff. Shrek, they've got some great kids stuff that they do. Yeah. And so it's just important that we keep all of that in mind. Yeah. But if that was not a slap in Disney's face,
this whole thing is a giant middle finger.
Because it came right after these huge announcements, these big changes that were happening, right? And then Universal was like, we're going to build a new park in Texas.
You're giving them free parking? Okay, well, here's the new park for our
That's right.
fans.
That's right.
I have said this for years. I'm just waiting. There's a lot of land between like Mokina, where we grew up, and Bloomington. That's just a lot of corn. A lot of land. I would like to see Disney in the corn.
Yeah, but Disney's never going to build in the corn because it can't run it year round.
What? Heat that ground. Just get some snow plows. I just want to have to take a drive down. Like, come on! I want Disney in the corn.
You can do what people actually think is happening in Disney World and build a giant bubble. Have you ever heard that where people like cast members are actually people are like, can you turn off the rain? Because they think that Disney is actually in a giant
Truman
bubble.
Show.
Well, it's because we often say that you're in a bubble.
Yes,
but
Disney, actually, there are people that actually think that.
Honestly,
I know. Poor Marjorie Taylor Greene. You just can't teach her anything. Can't tell her anything.
I actually do think that the moment somebody figures out how to make a park like that can run all season round in other places. Here's the thing.
I thought other places they already have.
But yeah, that's true. I always thought I liked Disney Quest. I liked Disney Quest because it bottled the experience and put it in other places that promoted the opportunity to go to Disney. And I still think that is a smart idea. And I think that it's the way you do it. But I think you need to find ways to allow people to not spend that much money and enhance the experience and spread the experience out, because not a lot of people want to fly to California or Florida or other parts of the world. And I think Universal doing this in like Texas for a smaller park that is bottling up their experience in a smaller way is very smart.
We've been saying that Disney could be in Texas for years.
There's a lot of ways that they can expand to spread things out and have better experiences. And the moment somebody figures that out to put it in other places that don't always have to be warm is going to be the big shift.
Well, wow, you're getting into history of Disney that I could like really go off on. So there was a plan to put a park in St. Louis that was indoor.
Yeah.
An indoor park. It was not going to be like a Disney park, but it was going to be a theme park experience indoors. And that fell through because I think the finances of it are so hard to make work. Yeah. Right. And what I think in Dubai, there's an indoor theme park.
It's beautiful though.
And that's what I've heard. I've heard it's huge and it's gorgeous. Yeah. It's huge. The other thing is how many people from Texas already come to Walt Disney World?
Right.
So you have to ask yourself, and I think Disney asks this, and that's why Universal is making it a family with young children park. What what am I taking away from the parks that I already have? Mm-hmm. What consumers am I taking away if I do that? It's the Subway problem, right? It's the Subway sandwich problem. We're going to build so many that we're going to start stealing customers from our own stores.
Right? Yeah.
And so I still think it would be a great idea. I still think it's a great idea, and they could do something really cool with it. But you wonder if if in some selfish way that's what they're thinking. Now we all know that there are more than enough people to go around. Oh, yeah. Right. This is not a zero. This is not a zero-sum game.
No.
But I wonder. I'm only throwing it out there because I'm just curious about it.
I think the problem now is that they are so priced out of that equation that you can't say that they're going to steal from that business, because look at yourself. You canceled your trips.
Yeah.
And so you are now. So now it's not, oh, we're going to steal business from ourselves. It is, we're losing customers who can't afford it. So we need to have an experience that they can now reach. Because if you're not going to drop prices, you're just going to lose those customers.
Right.
And they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's true. Well, it's certainly an interesting conversation and one that I think needs to be had. I think we've run so long with this podcast. It doesn't happen to happen. It doesn't have to happen now. But it definitely is an interesting discussion. Hey, so first of all, thank you, Mandi and Alex, for joining me today. I love having you. I love having you with me. You have such great thoughts and opinions and great energy. I love it. And also thank you everybody else that's listening. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to find me, you can find me. You can email me at jim@thegoofyguy.com. You can just go to thegoofyguy.com and leave a comment there. If you click on that little podcast link, it'll take you right to the podcasts. You can find me at thegoofyguy.omg.lol. This is something new. So I've got a couple of new socials, and I'll explain why. Thegoofyguy.omg.lol. And that will give you all my socials. You can find me there. It lists everything. So that's one place. You can also find me. I've started on Mastedon. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a new social networking platform that is a lot like cryptocurrency in that it's not central, right? It's spread out all over the world. And that is at the Goofy Guy at tech.lgbt. So you can find me there. You can find me on Instagram. It's the Goofy Guy blog. You won't really find me on Twitter anymore. I'm trying to kind of move away from that, and I probably won't go back until some changes happen there. That's just personal opinion for my sake. You can find me on Facebook at it's the Goofy Guy, and on YouTube at the Goofy Guy. So @the Goofy Guy. You can find me on YouTube. Thanks so much for listening. Mandi, where can they find you?
You could just reach out on Instagram. Mandi, so Mandi YE17.
Nice. And Alex, where can they find you?
You could find me on YouTube, Twitch, and most importantly, TikTok at Alex Corrao, AlexCorrao. And Jim, are you also on TikTok?
I am on TikTok, and I'm actually starting to do more on TikTok. And it's the Goofy Guy blog on TikTok. Thank you so much for asking. I really am starting, and I think what I'm going to use that for is more of my immediate reactions to things, or my, since it's a short form, I like that, and I can just pop on and say what I need to say and then move on. So, so you can find me on TikTok. It's the Goofy Guy blog. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure that you subscribe and leave a 5-star review. It really helps this podcast out. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure that you hit that subscribe button and click that thumbs up. I used to say smash that thumbs up, but I think a 54-year-old man saying that sounds stupid. Also, make sure that you go to thegoofyguy.com and sign up for the newsletter. I am going to fire that back up again. I promise I will not sell any of your information, and I will not spam you. Ask anybody that's on the list now. They will tell you they haven't heard from me in months. So I don't spam by any means. And also share the Goofy Guy with anyone else who would enjoy being a part of our community and experience. I hope we weren't too negative for you this time around. I just think we needed to have an honest discussion about what's happening with Disney at this moment. And thanks again for just being here with us. We really appreciate it. And you're, to be honest with you, you're the reason that we're here. So I have two people to say goodbye. So Alex and Mandi, say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks so much. And we will talk to you soon.